Hi, welcome to Nikki's Modern Mediterranean. I'm Nikki Gleckis, wife, mother, CEO, and entertaining expert. I wanted to start this show because I have all these delicious family recipes that no one's ever written down. So I'm so excited today to share my family's recipe for Yemista. Today we're making Yemista, one of the most popular dishes in Greece, a family favorite, and so many of you out there have asked me to make this recipe, so I thought it would be great to do on our show today. Yemista means stuffed, and you could do stuffed tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, zucchini, whatever you like, but traditionally it's usually tomatoes and peppers, and that's what I'm doing today. We're gonna do peppers, which are my favorite, and tomatoes, which are my husband's favorite. So we're gonna take our pepper, cut the tops off, and we're just gonna seed the pepper. And I'm using my hands, you can use a spoon, whatever you like, just to get all the seeds out. But you wanna make sure you keep it nice and sturdy. So we're gonna put the tops, we're gonna keep that to seal the vegetable. So we're gonna keep that right in there so we remember which tops go to which vegetable. So we're gonna do this for all of our peppers, nice and clean. Growing up, I think I was the only one that ate all the peppers, but my cousins all loved the tomatoes. So it was really fun that my grandmother would do a nice variety so that there was something for everybody to eat. When we opened our Greek restaurant, this was not one of the first things that made the cut to the first menu that we made, but we ended up adding this as a special because so many people are vegetarian, gluten-free, vegan, and traditionally you can make this completely vegetarian and gluten-free, which made it to be on our menu as a special dish and people loved it. So for our tomatoes, we are going to cut the tops off, like nice size so that you can close the top. And I'm just going to lightly cut around the seeds. You don't want to get to the edge because you want to make sure that we keep the vegetable nice and sturdy. We're going to core this and keep the cores so that we can puree it and put it into our mixture. Now, my mother-in-law showed me a little trick where she puts the bottom of the knife and slices it slightly, and that way it helps take the core out easier. See, it pops right out. And then we're just gonna scrape down the seeds. We wanna keep the walls of the tomato so that it holds the vegetable nice and sturdy in the dish. So many different people make this a ton of different ways. This has been the one recipe that while I was trying to do the show, I was trying to take all of my different family recipes and try to combine to make my own, but I've been noticing that everybody makes it completely different. And also I think that some people don't make it the same way twice. So for this recipe, I really wanted to combine all the different recipes from my family, and when I was asking everybody what they did in their Yemista, it was just so interesting to see how different everybody's recipe was. My grandmother from Chios, which is where my father's from, she only made this growing up with meat. And the only time that she made it vegetarian was during Lent when she would want us to fast. She would make it vegetarian for us. But my grandmother in Rhodes, she would make it vegetarian, I think because she doesn't like to eat meat. And when I married my husband, who's from a different part of Greece, he only ate it vegetarian growing up. So now I make it vegetarian for my family. But it's a great dish to make, especially during Lent, because then you can really just have a hearty, delicious dish with no meat or dairy, which is, for Greeks, fasting is 40 days before Easter. So we want to make sure that we have delicious meals to eat for that too. And now that I have a lot of vegetarian and gluten-free friends, it's a great dish to make for them. So slicing the bottom not only helps core it out, but when you're cooking these vegetables and you're putting the water around the vegetables, it will also help absorb the liquid to cook our rice. Because we're just gonna saute our mixture and not cook the rice. It's actually gonna cook in the oven when we bake our vegetables in the oven. It already looks so pretty. I love the different colors. You can use different color vegetables, and the eggplant and the zucchini are great addition to doing stuffed vegetables. Today I'm just gonna actually chop up a zucchini and eggplant and put it in our mixture, which will also give it such great flavor. Next, we're gonna make our mixture. So in efforts to combine all these family recipes that I got, I have taken little things that each person does that I think taste the best, and that way I can make my own recipe. So my grandmother uses lots of onion, but she also used meat in her mixture. So I'm gonna do 4 small onions for today, and I'm gonna puree this in a food processor with 8 cloves of garlic. So we love lots of garlic and lots of onions. We're gonna do that first. Get that all chopped up. I'm gonna scoop that in here. And next we are going to chop up a zucchini and an eggplant. So my grandmother's recipe, she did not use eggplant and zucchini. However, again, in efforts to combine recipes, this is something that my mother-in-law does because she makes this a vegetarian dish and it gives it such delicious flavor. So we're just gonna take our zucchini and our eggplant, just give it a little chop so we can put it in our food processor and get that ready for the mixture. It's really funny because when I started making this, I made this when we were opening our restaurant, and I was like, let me just make this at home. But the thing is, that's so funny, the reason I didn't make it is because growing up, my grandmother would be in the kitchen all day on Saturday. And so I assumed that this recipe just took so long to make. But I think it's just because maybe she was making a large quantity, or back then, I mean, what grandmother sat and watched TV? So all she did was cook for her grandkids anyway. So it should not be intimidating. This is actually a pretty easy dish to make once you get everything prepped. So we're gonna put our zucchini and our eggplant, chop that up, puree this. Put that in there. You'll see a lot of the same things in Greek cooking. One is we try not to never really waste anything. So we're gonna use the core of the tomato into our mixture. So I'm gonna put this right in the food processor to puree that too. So we're gonna put that in there. So that looks amazing. This is our pureed core of our tomatoes. So we've just made our tomato sauce that we're gonna add into our mixture with the rice. For this, we're gonna to make it a little bit thicker, I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. And I'm just gonna dilute that into this mixture just to make it a little bit thicker so that when we are cooking our rice, we need a lot of moisture because we're just sauteing our rice, and the rice is actually gonna cook in the oven inside our tomatoes and our peppers. So I just got that ready. So today I have 1 cup of rice. I'm using Carolina rice, which is a long grain rice. It cooks really well in the vegetables. And the rule of thumb for this is really 2 tablespoons per vegetable. But there is some variables because if you have a really giant pepper, you might need a little bit more, or if your vegetables are a little bit smaller, you might need a little less. So today I'm gonna use 1 cup of the rice. And now we're gonna go onto the cooktop and stir it all together and get the mixture ready for stuffing our peppers and our tomatoes. So now we're gonna get our mixture ready. I'm just using a saute pan. You can use a pot, whatever you like. I'm gonna cover the bottom with oil. I would say you need about 6 to 8 tablespoons. You really want a good amount of oil because we're gonna be sauteing all of our vegetables and our rice in this mixture. So you wanna make sure you have a good amount of oil. I've measured it out before. It's about 6 to 8 tablespoons. Our oil's nice and hot. We're gonna add in our onions and our garlic and give that a nice saute. And then we're gonna add in our zucchini and eggplant. Give that a nice toss to cover it in all the olive oil. And then we're gonna add our spices. We're just gonna use salt, pepper, and I'm gonna use cumin. Again, another variation that my mother-in-law uses, but my grandmother doesn't. But I really love the flavor, so I'm gonna add that into this. So we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of cumin, 1 teaspoon of pepper, 2 teaspoons of salt. After we completely saute this mixture, before we put this into our stuffed peppers and tomatoes, you can give it a little taste. So if you need a little bit more salt, you can always adjust that. So we're gonna give that a nice toss. And now we are going to add our rice. Add our rice in there. We're gonna combine all of this together so it has all the nice flavors before we add our tomato. Get that a little nice and cooked. So now that we have all of the rice, the onion, garlic, eggplant, zucchini, nice, well incorporated and cooked through, you want to saute this a couple minutes just to make sure that we've softened up the rice a little bit and the vegetables, and then we're going to add in our tomato core with our tomato paste that we've made before, and we're going to nicely cook this together. Look at that. It already looks so beautiful. And wait till we stuff in our vegetables. So here we're just looking to combine all of our ingredients and just cook it a few minutes just so that the rice has gotten a little bit softer, but you're not really looking to cook our rice. It's gonna actually cook inside our stuffed tomatoes and peppers. We're gonna add the liquid to cook the rice around the vegetables, and it's gonna cook in the oven. So this looks great to me, and now we're ready to stir in our fresh herbs. So our last thing for our mixture is we are going to stir in fresh mint and parsley. I use about almost a cup of parsley and a half a cup of mint. So we're gonna stir that in. I love how colorful this dish is. It's so pretty. The inside is pretty and the tomatoes and the peppers. So we're gonna do that. And now we're ready to stuff them. We're gonna fill the vegetables with this mixture. So just gonna really pat it in there to get it all packed in. Another step that after you fill these, that not everybody does, is to add a thin layer of breadcrumbs to the top before you add the tops of the vegetables to them. I like to do it just because I like the little crunch, but again, if you are making this for a gluten-free friend or you're making this when guests are coming over, you can just easily not add the breadcrumbs. It's not a major step to do. So we're gonna put this all in here. So I've filled all of these vegetables and I've patted that nice down, nice and tight. But if you have any of this leftover mixture, because sometimes I do when I do more tomatoes, then you can easily just add whatever's left over from your rice mixture and add it to our next step, which will be water and tomato paste, and you can add it so it can go around the vegetables and cook in the oven. So I've done a pretty good job of patting them down today, so I don't have any leftover, but if you did, that's what you could do. I'm gonna add the next step that my grandmother used to do, which is a thin layer of just Italian breadcrumbs, just at the top. So it's just a very little amount. I've measured out, doing this recipe a couple times for you, I've measured out about 1/4 of a cup of breadcrumbs. So you know, you just wanna put a very thin layer, pat that down. So we put those breadcrumbs on top of each one. And we're gonna seal them. We're gonna put our tops of our tomatoes and our peppers back on top. Get them ready. Now we need liquid to cook our rice. I'm gonna use 3 cups of water and 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And I'm going to, it's okay when your vegetables are full like this. If they don't stand straight up, you can seal it and just lay it down. That's okay too. You just wanna make sure that they're nice and sturdy into the pan. There we go. So we have our 3 cups of water, and I'm gonna take 2 tablespoons of tomato paste and dilute that into the water, get that ready. And I like to add potatoes to this dish. So this dish is a little bit more spacious. Some dishes will be a little tighter and you won't have room to put potatoes, but in this one I do. So I've chopped up earlier, I peeled a potato and chopped that, added it to water so it doesn't brown. And I'm going to just strain that potato, add some salt and pepper to it, and then put it around our dish so that it's ready to bake in the oven. So I have our potatoes. I'm gonna just put some salt and pepper on our potatoes. And I'm gonna put them, I'm just gonna drop them right into this tomato mixture carefully so it doesn't splash all over me, so that I can pour this around the vegetables. This only took about 30 minutes to prep, and it's gonna bake in the oven for about 1 hour and 45 minutes. So it's not an overly complicated recipe, but if you were gonna do this and you wanted to prep it a day before, you could prep this part of the recipe, cover this, put it in the refrigerator, and then the next day when you're getting ready to entertain or make a special dinner, then you could just put the tomato and the liquid and potatoes around the vegetables to bake in the oven. So we'll put our potatoes around. So I'm pouring this liquid in to really make sure that my potatoes are about 3/4 of the way covered. You really want to make sure you have a good amount of liquid, and the liquid is really going to depend on the size pan you use. So for me, this looks great. It was about 3 cups of the liquid. And our potatoes, we're just going to add a generous amount of olive oil to the tops and bake this in the oven. I'm going to bake this at 375 for about 1 hour and 45 minutes. I'm going to bake it uncovered. You can cover this, but you would really want to make sure that you have a nice sturdy vegetable. If you cover this whole platter here, the tomatoes could fall apart because you're steaming the vegetables and the rice. So I'm just going to keep it uncovered. I like the tops to get nice and toasted anyway, so we're going to put it in the oven. So I've taken our Yemista out of the oven, and to check to make sure it's fully cooked, I usually just take a fork and make sure it can go nice and easy into our potato, which it does. And I'm also going to check the rice. So I just put a little bit, take a little bit of this rice and make sure it's fully cooked and nice and soft. So it's ready to eat. So if I was serving this in our restaurant, I would always serve 1 tomato and 1 pepper. So I'll put that right there. We're gonna put some potatoes on the side. Awesome. Peppers are my favorite. Potatoes. That looks so yummy. So I'm gonna try this out. So good. The hints of flavors of the mint and the parsley really shine through. Thanks so much for watching. For the full recipe, visit nikkigleckis.com. If you have any questions, leave me a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe.